Welcome, guys. We've had the Imola Grand Prix and it's driver ratings time. And what a weekend of racing we've had. We've had multiple world champions slamming the wheel in frustration. One went on to win the race and the other, well, he'd hope he'd just find a deck chair somewhere and soak up the sun instead. We had rookie mistakes, big crashes. Let's take a look. Yes, guys, it's driver ratings time, and we'll also go through my predictions review, which has been, well, another stinker. But we can't say the same for the race winner, where we always start the winner, the champion, four-time world champion, and champion-elect for this season. Who knows? But what a race weekend for Maximilian Verstappen. Yes, he was slamming the steering wheel with frustration over Friday practice. He just couldn't get to grips with the car at all. But brilliant work from trackside engineers and brilliance of Max Verstappen himself. Pulled through with a really good P2 in qualifying sessions, which just puts him in that position. He always manages to do that, gets himself in the position just to give himself a fighting chance. And what a move he pulled off in turn one. I mean, everybody's been lauding that. Yes, I've watched it a couple of times and I've watched it a few more times since. It was that good, but I do think Oscar Piastri was a little bit naive on that one. He gave him the racing line. And the corner effectively, and he said he braked too early, but I'm not that aside. It was still a great move to come that far back from Max Verstappen, whilst looking and defending from George Russell and trying to hold on to second place. And boy, did he just throw it, win it or bin it, like Christian Horner said, into turn one. And boy, did he win out with that one. A brilliant move. Took first place, and from there onwards we were thinking, will we get it again where we get the Piastri and Max Verstappen fight? Because, you know, we see all along that the Red Bulls are harder on the tyres the longer they go on, but for this weekend it was a bit of a switch around. Red Bulls, have they found some sort of way of fixing this issue, or is it just something that just it's taken race by race? Because we see with other teams it works brilliantly well one weekend and the other weekend they're completely lost, and the only ones that can be consistent so far are the McLarens, and will it be a different one next weekend? But getting back to this one, he managed absolutely everything brilliantly well, as you would expect. He's done that so many times. The VSC worked perfectly for him, a real blessing. He went the perfect timing, and he pit, and from there on it was a comfortable win. The safety car added a little bit of doubt, but he just does it again, doesn't he? And he was lucky enough that he had the other McLaren right behind him, what was on the worn tyres of Piastri. I don't think, though, even with that Norris would have had the pace to catch and pass Max Verstappen anyway. And is he in the title battle? He's been writing himself off throughout this whole time. Even now, he's still sort of saying, I won, but Piastri's battle is really with his teammate. And I think, don't be fooled. He's definitely in this fight, and he's just really just putting himself and the team under the radar. No pressure, no championship talk, just turn up race by race. And boys, just 22 points behind Oscar Piastri in the World Championship now. And you wouldn't bet against him going on to win it from here. The Red Bull now looks a better car, much better than it was earlier in the season. We've seen that over the last couple of weekends, and I think it'll be interesting to see how they get on from here. But a 10 out of 10 weekend for me for Max Verstappen. He was brilliant. Second place man, Lando Norris, and well, another poor qualifying session just made life difficult for him. Started in fourth place, managed to finish second in the end. He was much better in his racecraft, and I did like the way he was much more clinical with his moves on the guys ahead of him. He was, set Oscar Piastri up for his move brilliantly well. The VSC was horribly timed for him. He literally pitted just the lap before, and he lost out on a cheap pit stop on that. The safety car helped him, but again, not particularly well, because it meant, he ended up coming out behind Oscar Piastri, although on fresher tyres. By the time he did pass him, Max was comfortably ahead 5-6 seconds up the road at that stage. But I think it was a much better race for him. I wouldn't say a better weekend. Is qualifying again the downfall for him, and he just really struggled. They said they had the rear was just struggling in the slow corners, and it showed in this race. Is this just race specific? We know they're slower in the slow corners, a little bit more of them here, and there's more of them next weekend, so it doesn't bode well for them. How will Monaco go for them? But for Lando Norris, he can be happy. Beats his supposed championship rival in Oscar Piastri's teammate, comes home behind Max Verstappen after a poor qualifying session. I'm giving him an 8 out of 10. Third place man, the man on pole position, Oscar Piastri, and well, it was looking like it was just going to be his to lose after a brilliant qualifying lap. And then a great start as well. He was comfortably ahead, and then he was too busy defending from George Russell. Braked early, even so much that George was saying, what the hell is Piastri doing braking that early? And he left the racing line. He never went over to cover Max Verstappen at all. He didn't see him as a threat, and I think that was a little bit naive for him. He then struggled with tyres, and then he got the horrible strategy call like everybody else that went for the first early stops, and then it was hard work. I mean, he made some good moves on people, but he was still losing time to the leaders, Max Verstappen, even though on fresher tyres, because he just couldn't make the most of them in clean air. So I think it was bad timing on the strategy call for him especially. Did they need to do that? Did they need to cover off anyone else behind? Probably not, but I don't think at that stage he had the tyres to attack Max Verstappen. I think they tried something different. It didn't really work out for him this weekend, but he's come home. He's done still a decent, solid weekend, coming home in third place. I think he'll be disappointed though, because had he held on to first place, who knows how the race would have run out from there. We know it's difficult to overtake here in Imola. We did see it, but with faster like-for-like sort of similar cars, I think it would have been a little bit harder. And then the boot would have been potentially on Red Bull's fault to try something different. Or would they have gone for the early stop and it cost them? But it's just questions we'll never know. But for Oscar, he's still in the lead of the championship, a healthy lead at that. And if you can just keep out race weekends where he's not doing too great and just follow Max Verstappen home, he'll be happy with that. 7 out of 10 for me for this weekend. Fourth place man, Lewis Hamilton, started in 12th after a horrible qualifying session. They were absolutely nowhere on one lap pace, but when it comes to the races, these boys are at the races. They look fiery and, ready to just charge in the race. Lewis, though, was struggling really initially. Early on, he was stuck behind Kimi Antonelli for an awfully long time, but when he finally got past him, luckily the VSC came at a perfect time for him. The right strategy call for him going on the hard. They did say that, but probably Fernando Alonso should have done the same thing going on the hards early doors, although the pace for the Astons on hard was different. We'll get to them later, but for Lewis on the hards, it worked brilliantly well. They had pace, they were fighting, and they're so good on their tyres in the race, and that's probably part of the reason why they just can't light them up and get them in the window for the race, for qualifying, should I say. A good move when he got past Antonelli in the end, and then he got past Alex Albon thanks to the Charles Leclerc incident, and then it was always going to be easy for him to pass Charles Leclerc this time around with the tyre advantage he had, but he made the most of it. I was really impressed with this weekend. I've given him a 10 out of 10. Fifth place man, Alex Albon, and what a weekend for him in the Williams. Started in 7th, a really good qualifying session for him. They look fiery. Qualified behind his teammate though, and then obviously helped with the teammate strategy call on their side of the garage. Luckily for him, he didn't go for that strategy at all. The VSC worked perfectly well for him, then got him up into P3 at one point. I think it was always going to be difficult for him to hold on to that against Oscar Piastri, but then the safety car came, and I think that really shot him because he was definitely on for P4. He was also saying that he looked like, and even Oscar Piastri in the cooldown room was saying that had Alex got past Charles Leclerc, it would have been difficult for him to hold off Alex Albon on the fresher tyres. So again, he did say he was probably a bit too eager to get Charles Leclerc because he could see the big podium in his eyes. So who can blame him? So I think that's another thing. We've seen him do that before. But overall, to say that, you're disappointed after a P5 is absolutely tremendous. Shows how far this car has come since Miami. It's been absolutely mega. They were fighting with P10s, last of the points playing positions, but it's been a big turnaround in the last couple of races for Williams. And this weekend they took on Alex's side at least, took full advantage of that. There could have been a little bit more on the cards for him, and should he have done that, been a bit more patient with that Charles Leclerc move? I think that's the only downside I can see of his race weekend. But for me, a 10 out of 10 weekend. He was brilliant. Sixth place finisher for Charles Leclerc, started 11th. Again, another one with really good race pace in the end. Interesting, it's a bit of a shame that the VSC came out for him when it did, because he would have gone for the pit two-stop strategy, and it would be really interesting to see him racing through the field at the end. We obviously never got to do that. The VSC really did shaft him hard, didn't it? The SC kind of helped him back a little bit, but then, I mean, he didn't pit and then went to stay out and hold on to that position from P4. A little bit surprised he did that. He tried his hardest to hold back Alex Albon. Eventually, obviously, let him through because of that investigation, which they later said because he'd let Alex Albon pass, they never followed through. So likely that potentially a penalty was going to come in. That there was some confusion because he let him through, and then they said no further investigation. And you thought, oh, did he really need to let him through? But that was clarified up after by the FIA. And he was always going to struggle to hold back Lewis Hamilton, who had fresher tyres. I think the only downside again was why he didn't pit under the SC and have the fresher tyres, and then he could have battled hard against Lewis and Albon, and potentially they could have all three of them chased up Oscar Piastri in that third place, but that kind of didn't happen because you had Charles Leclerc, who was a little bit of the anchor of the three, slowing them down and not letting them all three catch up to Piastri. We'd had a ding-dong battle potentially there, wouldn't we, with four cars going for that podium position at the end. But a really decent weekend in the end. P6, he won't be happy with that, but there's some positives to take away, that the car looked much better in race conditions than we've seen before. So some positives to take from that, but the big one really is they need to get this qualifying sorted. He goes to his home race week next weekend in Monaco, and you can only hope for some sort of surprise performance from him. And a win like he pulled off last time. Don't look likely, but here's hoping for him. A 7 out of 10 for me for this weekend. 7th place man George Russell, and he had a brilliant Saturday with P3 qualifying, but from there, that was the highlight of his race really. They really struggled. Even on the laps to the grid, he was saying, it was snaky, really struggling on them hard tyres, just couldn't keep them up to temperature. He was ahead of Lewis Hamilton at the safety car, but he was always going to struggle to keep him behind, because he just went to just hold on to positions and gain positions in the safety car and try hold on on the older tyres. Had he pitted, he would have been behind faster cars. So I think that was just the only hope that they kind of had on their strategy call. So I can see why they didn't pit at that time. And then he was down in P7, and he just really struggled with the tyres. Really interesting that we've seen that from Mercedes now a couple of weekends, where they've normally been better on their tyres, and they don't really like these softer tyres, and especially don't like the heat. So any cold weather races will be interesting for them, but we're coming to summer season and we're in Europe, so they just hope for some spots of rain from when the next races where they go to can pull out some better performances from them. But a difficult one for him, a 4 out of 10 for me. 8th place man Carlos Sainz, and it's another one where a weekend of what it could have been, a brilliant qualifying session up in P6, and then he made, they pit early, and that was a horrible strategy decision as we've seen in the end. He came out P11. He was battling with Nico Hülkenberg behind the safety car at one point. The safety car did help him though, really pushed him on and pick up some points. He was disappointed with the weekend because it felt like it was another weekend, a bit like Miami, where there was a lot more on the cards and they never really took full advantage of that. And especially on his side of the garage anyway, and he's just hoping that they can just nail a race, just complete the whole weekend. They've not been able to do that on his side of the garage. More points were available, so he could be disappointed on that, but I think a decent weekend for him. Better that he managed to get back into 8th place rather than just picking up that last sort of 10th place point had it just finished without a safety car. But a 7 out of 10 for me for him for this weekend. 9th place man Isaac Hadjar, started in 9th, finished in 9th, and again another one that started and pitted early under the safety car, and that bad strategy call really did cost him dearly. The safety car, he pit under that, and that brought him back in P9. He was on fresher tyres behind Carlos Sainz, and that was probably the best he could have hoped for in the end. So apart from the bad pit strategy call, I think it was another real solid weekend from him. Some good points for the boy. He's proving himself really, really well in this team. And how many more good performances and Yuki bad performances before the big talk starts again about replacing Yuki in that second Red Bull? I think he even tamed that decision, and I think it'd be wise if he just sees his season out, just builds on what he's and his racecraft from here. But he's done an absolutely solid job for me. An 8 out of 10 for him for this weekend. 10th place, Yuki Tsunoda, the last of the points finishers from pits to P10. You'd say that's a good weekend overall in the end, but his qualifying smash really put him in a horrible position. It just needs to cut out these small mistakes. And just how he's another one that just needs a clean weekend where it can just all come together and he can show his promise of what he can deliver to that Red Bull. We've not really quite seen it just yet. The questions are that would we have seen the improvement from Lawson over this time, and that we've not really quite seen Yuki go in and snatch. I know Lawson was finishing absolutely miles back, but Yuki with these crashes just not helping himself when it comes to race day. He had so much to do in the end. He was P11 behind the safety cars. He got a nice pass on Nico Hulkenberg that got him into that point. A decent drive you'd say from him in the end, but I think a little bit disappointing, giving him a 7 out of 10. 11th place man, Fernando Alonso, and you've got to feel sorry for this world champion. He was another one slamming his wheels in the race. So disappointed with how that fell in the end. Started in 5th, finished just outside the points. Still no points on the board for him this season. Again, the strategy call, a horrible one, and they made the biggest mistake, I think. I did call it in the 3 good, 3 bad in my race review, that they pitted both drivers and they ran out of tyres because they went on the mediums in qualifying runs as well, and they had to put old mediums on when they put under the VSC SC. Just a call to go early didn't really help him at all, especially when you've got no tyres, and then if you do get this sort of VSC safety car later on, you just leave yourself open, and it kind of happened sadly for Fernando Alonso. You're just lamenting it's how unlucky he was, and the frustration of that with the safety car really cost him some decent points. It looked like he would at least pick up at least a point in the end. It wasn't to be, but he drove his heart out, and he can be positive going into the next races, because this was a really strong showing from Aston Martins. They qualified brilliantly well. They're hoping it's just not a one-hit wonder, but the big upgrades that they've brought actually have worked, and that's a massive positive that you can take from him and his side. I think it's just so disappointing that he's just still not got no points on the board yet. But for his race weekend, I'm giving him a good week. Points of 7 out of 10 for me. P12 finish for Nico Hulkenberg, and it's another one, a race of what could have been real promise. Started in 17th place, started on the hards, and that worked really well for him. Capitalised massively under the VSC, and then he was looking like he was on for some good points, but the safety car really did not help him at all, because all the faster cars caught up the gap that he managed to gain in the VSC cheap pit stop that he managed, and then just missed out on points. P12, but in that dog of a car, I think that's a really solid drive from Nico Hulkenberg. You will be disappointed, unlucky with that safety car. I suppose the safety cars have either really made your race this weekend or really shot you in the foot, and it was one that kind of shot Hulkenberg in the foot this weekend, because it looked like points were on the card. I've given him a 7 out of 10. 13th place finish for Pierre Gasly, and he started in 12th, and he probably wasn't happy with that, because it looked like there was more in that car to start further up the field. He didn't quite maximise that, and then his race just really went horribly with that mistake where he went off track, lost 4 positions fighting with Charles Leclerc, put him down in P14, and then he had an awful lot of work to do from there. Went for the 2-stop strategy. The safety car really cost him as well, dropped him down in the field, but a weekend to forget of racing for Pierre Gasly this weekend. I think he'll be disappointed with how it's ended up. I think there was probably more on the cards for them. I'm giving him a 4 out of 10. 14th place for Liam Lawson, started in 15th, finished in 14th. He got really unlucky with his qualifying session, because it looked like he would have got himself into Q2. The red flag, didn't come at the right time for him. He was 16th, he moved up a position, didn't he, because of that Franco Colapinto one-place grid penalty that started him in 15th. And and then he just got screwed over by both safety cars, the virtual safety car and the safety car, because he was on old tyres, just trying to take, again, like others ahead. Once you've done that, you just got to try and battle hard and hold on for what you can, but overtaking was possible. The tyre difference that Pirelli introduced this weekend actually really played its part without being the big issue or the big story, and that's kind of worked perfectly well for them. I mean, other drivers probably won't say so, but for Liam Lawson, a difficult weekend in the end. Looked like there was some good promise. He was better, just unlucky, I'd say, but sometimes you make your own luck, and it didn't really work for him this weekend. I'm giving him a 4 out of 10. 15th place for Lance Stroll in P8, and he looked like he had a good weekend. He was on the pace of Fernando Alonso much of that race, right behind him. He wasn't absolutely miles off the pace. Again, for him though, the poor strategy call really cost him, and then so did the safety car in the end. Just bad timing on that for him, and dropped him way back. Disappointing to finishing 15th though in the end, despite all that. I know you're running around on old hard tyres, which their car didn't like at all. Disappointing, massively disappointing, more so for him than Fernando Alonso to finish in 15th. Another weekend to forget for him. I'm giving him a 5 out of 10. The only positive really was his qualifying lap. 16th place man, Franco Colapinto, the new boy, started in 16th place in the end with the 1 place grid drop. A big smash on qualifying. Really what he didn't need. He just needed to show decent pace and just bring the car home. But that big smash really cost him in the race. He pitted before the VSC, and that really cost him again. And then he just struggled for pace after that. A difficult weekend for him. It's kind of always been that way when the new boy stepped into new cars, hasn't it? We've seen that with a number of drivers, even more experienced drivers. You can't just get in these and just go flying. And to give him just 5 races, to expect that when we've seen, it's taken Carlos Sainz 4 or 5 races as an experienced racer to get used to that Williams. So to kind of expect magic suddenly from Colapinto that we probably didn't see from doing yet, probably a little bit too much to ask. He really didn't help himself with that big smash though. I've given him a 4 out of 10 for this weekend. 17th place finish for Ollie Berman. It's been a difficult weekend for him. He qualified in 19th place, finished in 17th in the end. He pit he pit during the VSC, the tyre didn't go on properly. He had to pit again, and that really cost him some good places that he kind of made up earlier on. But after that, it was just, the Haas just hasn't been at the races this weekend, and it's surprised at how yo-yo they've been. They've either been brilliant and fighting for points or absolutely miles back at the back, and this was just one of them for them this weekend. Safety cars, VSCs didn't really help them at all, and for these young guys or your smaller teams, they absolutely need these to fall in their place to maximise their weekends when they happen, and they'll be disappointed with that. Ollie, I've given him a 5 out of 10. 18th place man, Gabby Bortoleto, while starting in 14th, I thought was a decent qualifying session, and then in the race though, he just seems to find himself all the way at the back again. I mean, he was last, Ollie Berman was a lap down, but obviously helped by the safety car where he managed to unlap himself and then came to pass Bortoleto and we'll finish 4 or 5 seconds up the road from him. So didn't get helped by the VSC, and his racecraft or strategy is just really not helping him when it comes to race day. It's been another race weekend where it's just been disappointment after a decent qualifying session where you thought, there's some promise here, but just needs to get a race right, and a whole clean weekend for him. It's not quite happened for him just yet. A 3 out of 10 for me for this weekend. And then we get to the DNFs, and it was homeboy, the last of the DNFs, Kimi Antonelli. Didn't finish on lap 46. He had that throttle issue in the end. Potentially saying that was going on for a little while, but he drove really well with that, keeping Lewis Hamilton back for as long as he did. He went long on the hards as well, and that was a really good strategy call from them. He pit under the VSC, but then when the mediums came on, I don't know if that's when the issue started, because he seemed to struggle on the mediums, and then obviously he DNF'd in the end. So I'm not really sure where was it. Just he didn't have the pace anyway on the mediums and he was going to fall back, but obviously the throttle issue just put paid to that. A difficult home weekend for him this weekend. He did say that I think the build up and that sort of whole pressure of the home race kind of got to him a little bit, and he kind of needs to tame that side of things. We've seen that affect him like it did when he went out for the free practice session in Monza, where he had that big smash, that whole hype. He needs to just control that side of things. He's a young rookie. I'm sure he'll come to manage that in time, or you'd hope he does. But yeah, not a great weekend for him. I'm giving him a 5 out of 10. And the other DNF was Esteban Ocon. Pulled up on the side of the road on lap 29. A difficult weekend for the Haas guys. Finished nearly last, 17th with Behrman and Ocon, absolutely miles away. Just didn't have any points or pace with him at any point in the race either. Anyway, no rating for him. He didn't finish any of the laps. Let's get to the predictions review, and it's been a horrible one for me for this weekend. For qualifying, though, I had Norris to finish on pole, Piastri second, and Kimi Antonelli in his home race, I thought after that Miami sprint pole, I thought he could pull off something spectacular. Didn't happen. It was Piastri first, wasn't it? Max Verstappen with a brilliant second, and George Russell, the ever reliable, in third place. For the race, I had Norris to take the win, Piastri second, as predicted, on McLaren 1-2, and Verstappen to do what he does and just come home in third. But Verstappen proved every doubter wrong with a brilliant win to take that home. I thought it'd be a good weekend for the McLarens with that 1-2. It didn't quite work out for them. Is it disappointing finish second and third? It probably is when you're fighting for the championship and you've got the best car. I thought it'd be a bad weekend for the Alpines. I'll take the tick on that. Franco Colapinto crashed, was nowhere, and Gasly had a poor race after some decent promise in qualifying. I thought I'd probably get that one wrong, to be honest, because the Alpines shown good pace in the early parts of qualifying. It didn't really come together for Gasly in the last lap, and his race was shocking. And Colapinto didn't have a great race either. But there we have it. That's the predictions review and the driver ratings done. We go straight into race week. Monaco next up. We've got free practice on the Thursday, Saturday qualifying, Sunday for the race. Watch out for the Monaco preview coming shortly, and then the qualifying and race reviews. Keep watching. See you for the next one. Please like, subscribe, comment. Much appreciated. See you in the next one.